Kate with Beautiful Pie Shop, and this is my daughter Lainey. And today we're going to show you how to make Maggie's stay-on baby booties. We're using the baby pattern, but the directions are going to be the same for all of the sizes, so you can watch along, sew along with us no matter what size you're making. So you'll want to print pages 1 to 13 for the instructions. And then if you look on the first page, it'll tell you, I'll cover you up, it'll tell you what pages to print for each size. So you don't have to print sizes that you're not going to make. And this is what you will end up with for each pair of booties. You're going to have a sole and a vamp, we call it a toe piece in the pattern, and this is the cuff or booty piece. On the larger sizes, this is going to print on 2 pieces of paper because it does not fit. So one says this is the edge to overlap, and the other one says overlap pattern pieces here. So when you cut these out, you'll tape them together. Don't cut this side of fabric and this side of fabric. Put your papers together first. On the larger sizes that have to be split into more than 2, you'll see a little guide on the bottom of each piece that shows you where it goes in there. There is no overlap on those, so you can cut your own extra paper just to keep it sturdier if you want, but then I did it that way so it would be easier to see which piece goes where. And there will be a casing. Now when you print your pattern pieces, you want to make sure that you have fit to page unchecked, that it's printing at 100% so that your pattern pieces print to the correct size. And Lainey, how can they know that they did it the right way?
There's a 1-inch square in every page, and you can measure it to know if it's the right size.
That's right, so you can make sure that your pattern pieces are the correct size. So I'm going to have Lainey cut these out. And then one other thing I'm going to do in this video that's a little bit different than the tutorial, I'll show you how it goes in the tutorial, and I'll also show you the way that we're going to put these together today. We're not doing the modified elastic in this tutorial, but I'm going to use the modified elastic casing piece to do something cool with the casing. So we'll show you when we get there. If you don't have this file, it is in the Facebook group. In the group documents, it's called Modifications and Casing Pieces. So you can print out a casing piece for the modified elastic for any of the sizes. So let's get busy cutting. Alright, now line up those 2 booty pieces and tape them together. Alright, now we are ready for fabric. Alright, now we're going to talk fabric. We're going to need about 1/4 yard of fleece and 1/4 yard of some kind of cotton. You can use a woven or a knit. Just be careful with the knit. If it's really stretchy, you might need to stabilize it, or you might need to use a walking foot. Minky is kind of a pain in the rear, but it's really cute, so you might think it's worth it. I'm going to use Grippy Dot fabric for the bottom, and these are kind of being upcycled from some bigger booties that I made for the big pattern and didn't need because my feet just aren't that big. So we cut those apart. I hope nobody's too horrified. And we are going to use those to make our soles for these booties. And I'm actually going to use 2 different fabrics on these booties. I'm making these for Maggie because we made her a really cute skirt out of this fabric already, and I want her to have booties to match. So we're going to use these little bunnies for the toe, and we're going to fussy cut so that our bunnies are in the middle of her toe. The way that the text goes on the pattern pieces is the direction that you want your fabric to go if you're going to fussy cut. Then we're going to use this for the cuff. That will be cute. And then we've got gray fleece for the inside. Haven't decided what I'm going to use for the casing. What do you think? That or that?
This one.
Okay. We'll cut our casing out of this too. So the casing, we're just going to cut 2 out of cotton. The cuff, we're going to cut 2 from cotton and 2 from fleece. These are going to be mirror images of each other. So as long as your fabric is folded like it is when you buy it off the bolt, you're going to be cutting mirror image pieces when you put it down. So you're just going to put it down, you're going to cut it once, and you'll have 2 pieces that are mirror image. Same goes for the sole. You will want mirror image soles. You're going to cut mirror images out of Grippy Dot or whatever you want on the outside. For a baby that's little and not walking, just use the same fabric that you're using for the rest of the booty, just the cotton. And then you'll need 2 of these out of fleece for the inside, and with the toes you'll need 2 of cotton and 2 of fleece. So we're gonna cut, and we are using this right now. I talked about using this hidden elastic casing. This is going to come into play later when we're sewing. This is all you need to worry about now, even if you're doing it the way that I'm doing it. But this is like the pattern, and we're going to cut it out of that.
So we've cut out the toe piece, the soles, and the casing, and the booty piece.
Okay, and now we're going to mark the dots on the booty piece. You can use a disappearing ink pen. That's what you would normally use with another pattern, but I actually like to just use a Sharpie because it's going to get covered up on this pattern anyway. So you'll stick some pins through your fabric right at the dots, and then pull this back, and you'll make a little mark right where the pin goes into the fabric, and then pull that up and get the cotton on the other side. I think I just lost my pin. I'm gonna have to stick this guy back through. Okay, now we're going to get our fleece and cotton layers matched up and ready to sew. If you're following along in the pattern, in the tutorial, this will be steps 3 and 4. So we're going to lay out all of the fleece with the right side up, and then put the cotton on top with the right side down. So we're doing this right sides together. And now we are going to sew all around the outside of the booty piece, leaving this part open, and we're going to sew across the top of the toe. The rest of this will be left open. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance for all of that, so I'm going to get this pinned, and then Lainey is going to sew for us. Okay, and now Lainey is ready to sew. Lainey got that all sewn for us, and now we are going to cut the seam allowance here. I'm just going to cut it in half around here, and I'm going to angle those corners so that I don't have bulk around the corners. And I'm going to cut across the top of the toe. Now I will turn this like this, and I will go press it, and I will turn this right side out. And I like to use a chopstick to poke these corners out. Sometimes I'll need to pick them a little bit with the pin, but oftentimes the chopstick is enough. Looks good. Alright, and now I recommend pressing these. You'll want to kind of feel this and make sure that you get this right at that seam there. You want to make sure that this isn't folded in at all like this when you go around there, because that's going to make this length shorter, which can affect how much overlap you end up with. So be really careful with that. So I just wiggle it like that as I go around and press it. And that's enough for me. I usually don't pin this, but if you want to, go ahead and pin it. I think I'm going to pin it for Lainey. So now we'll be top stitching around here and top stitching across the top of the toe. And in the baby pattern, we use an 1/8 inch seam allowance. In the bigger patterns, we use a 1/4 inch, but it's really up to you how you'd like to do it on any of them. So Lainey's going to do that for us. All right, Lainey's ready to sew here, and she has chosen a 1/4 inch seam allowance for the top stitching. So she's going to stitch down here, and then I'm actually going to have her do this in the same step, because we're not going to serge this today. I'm going to show you how to do the hidden seams at the end. So she's going to get to here and then change her stitch length to 5 to just baste around here, and she'll do that with these pieces too. She'll baste across the bottom. So go for it, Lane. Alright, so we have our top stitching done around the outside of each of these booty pieces and across the top of the toe. And Lainey happened to go ahead and baste these already. That'll come later in the paper pattern. You don't have to worry about doing that right now, especially if you're not going to do the hidden seams. Okay, the next step in the written tutorial is to finish these edges here. And we're just going to skip that because I'm going to show you something else that we're going to do. I just didn't want you to get thrown off that we are skipping that. Next, we are going to take the sole pieces and match up wrong sides together. So we've got our grippy dot here and fleece here, and we're just going to baste around these. So 2 feet, mirror imaged. Okay, if you have any trouble getting the grippy dot to feed through, then you can cover it up with some tissue paper and just sew straight through that, and it will go through just fine. Alright, at this point we still have our booty pieces and toe pieces just hanging out here, and Lainey has basted the grippy dot to the fleece on both of the soles. At this point, we're going to prepare our casing, and now I'm showing you this with a different fabric so you can see how we prepare the casing in the tutorial, and then I'm going to show you the other way that I'm going to prepare it for the booties that I'm putting together today. So if you're just following the tutorial, here's your casing piece, and you would have finished these edges. I think you can get away with not finishing them. I do it a lot and I've never had any trouble not finishing them, but if you want to be thorough, make sure that you serge your zigzag there. But those are going to be pressed in 1/4 inch on the edges, and then this is going to be pressed in half. And you're going to stitch with an 1/8 inch seam allowance on the side, stop 1/2 inch away from the top, and then go across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and when you get to this edge, go down with an 1/8 inch seam allowance again. So I will sew that so that you can see what it looks like. Alright, that's what it looks like when it's sewn, and you can see that the only place that raw edge is going to be is folded in here. An elastic is going to end up going through this. I've never had it fray out or poke out of the ends or anything like that, so you can get away with not doing that if you feel like skipping it. And now at this point, you'll make sure that you've finished the edges of the casing. The casing is important to do now because these ends are going to be free when the booty is assembled. You'll also want to finish all of these edges that you haven't already finished. If you're serging things separately, you'll want to serge around the bottom of the cuff and the curve of the toe and around the outside of the sole. If your serger can handle it, you can put all these pieces together first and then serge around at the end. Except for the casing, I would still go ahead and do the casing before you put it together, and then you'll serge over that when you serge everything at the end. But not everybody's serger will handle that, so only do that if your serger will go through a lot. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to prepare this casing, and I have printed off the modified casing piece for it. I'm going to press my casing in half. This was cut with the regular casing piece. And now I'm going to fold my modified casing piece in half, or just stick it on there open. And I want to center that here, and then I'm going to clip this 1/4 of an inch. That's my seam allowance. You don't want to go past your seam allowance. I'm going to clip this on both ends and clip this. Alright, now I'm going to fold this the other way, wrong sides together, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my seam right here at the clip, and I'm going to sew to 1/2 inch from the top, and then we're going to flip it, and that's going to turn this edge. Now I am leaving this unfinished inside like I did on the little Mickey Mouse fabric. If you want that finished, then go ahead and finish this edge before you do that. Alright, so I'm going to sew on both of those ends and be back. Here that is all sewn from here down to here and from here up to here on each of those pieces. And now I'm going to clip the corners here. And make sure that these clips go all the way to my stitching. That's good. And then I'm going to flip this. And I'll finish flipping it and press it. Those are turned and pressed, and now I'm not going to sew down the edge of this because I don't need to now. I'm just going to sew 1/2 inch away from the top all the way across the top, and then I'm going to finish this bottom edge if I'm not doing hidden seams or serging at all at the end. And here they are sewn across the top. Now we're going to match up what cuff booty piece goes with what sole. And for my project, it's going to matter which toe goes with which side because I fussy cut my bunnies and I want them facing the inside. So if you look at step 12 in your directions, we have the soles laid out like this with the bottom, whatever's going to be touching the floor, is facing up. And then this cuff goes with this sole. The long flap goes with the big toe. And then this one goes with that one. If you don't have that printed out and you're just working from memory because you've done this a bunch of times, you can still get confused on this step if you don't look at it and figure out what goes with what. But another way that you can do this while you're working to figure out which sole goes with which cuff and toe piece, depending on how your fabric is, you can put your sole down like this as if it's on somebody walking, and then wrap your cuff like that and put it on and see, does this make sense? Yes, this makes sense because I have my snaps on the outside and the big toe is there, so I know that this cuff is going to go with that sole. And so for this project I'm going to do this with my toe. I know that I want this one because I want my little bunny going toward the inside. So now I'm just going to put these all together and grab a casing piece for it. And this is one booty. And then I'm going to get all of my other ones together for the other booty, and I'm going to keep those piles separate until I'm done with my project so that I don't mix anything up. Before we can assemble the booties, we want to cut our slits for elastic in the fleece side of the toe piece. So we're just going to pinch the fleece out, and I just hold it up to the pattern piece like that and snip, snip, and you'll have slits for your elastic. So do that on both of the toe pieces before you go on. Now we're ready to attach things to the sole. So the first piece to attach is the booty piece. We're going to take that and we are going to fold it in half down here at the bottom, and then just center that here on the heel. If you want, you can fold this and pin it, and you can fold this and pin it so that you've got centers, but I just like to do it the fast way. So I fold it in half, make sure this is going down the middle of the booty, and you'll be good. You'll have this right in the middle here. So get this piece, this center pinned, and then you'll just pin around the curve this way and pin around the curve this way, and sew that on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Right, here's that cuff sewn on, and now we're going to kind of fold this out of the way and get our toe and put this on the same way. So we're going to fold this in half and center it up here, and then pin it around, and it's going to overlap the cuff on the sides. If it's not overlapping the same amount on each side, then this isn't really the center of the curve, and you need to just move it a little bit so that it overlaps the same on both sides. And then you'll sew the toe on. Here we have it pinned around, and now I'm going to sew. That is now sewn together, and I like to stick the cuff in here while I sew the casing on, just to keep it out of my way. Now we're ready to put the casing on, and we will line it up the same way, fold it in half, and put it down in the center here. Now, the way that I just did this casing, it's going to overlap the toe piece by 1/4 inch. So you can use that as a guide, and you can actually start here and just go on around without even pinning it. And as long as you keep this lined up with the edge of your fabric, you're going to end up with this 1/4 inch past that. So that's what I'm going to do to sew that on. At this point, you're almost done. If you are not doing hidden seams, if you're just following the tutorial as it is, you would be ready to flip this the right way at this point. If you have not been finishing these edges and want them finished, then now would be the time to serge around all of that. We're going to do hidden seams, so you're probably wondering how, because I didn't cut out extra stuff, but I actually did. I've had it hiding out, and I'm going to grab that. Okay. This would have been my other option for the casing because I think it's so cute. So I cut out an extra pair of soles, so these are mirror imaged. And now what I'm going to do is take one that goes with my booty, and I'm putting it like this. Now, there's a lot of booty there. If you're just making shoes, this is really easy because everything will fit in the sandwich. But making a booty, you can't always get everything to fit in the sandwich. So you actually are going to leave this cuff hanging out the hole that you're going to turn this through. So if this were just a shoe and this took up no space at all, then you would have this on here. Get that casing inside, you don't want to get that caught. This would make a flat sandwich, and you'd sew around the edge and leave a hole, and then you'd flip it right side out, and you would have an insole in there that's going to hide the seams around the edge. With some of the booty sizes, you're going to be able to fit the cuff down the middle here and leave an opening in the toe. which I think is the better way to do it if you can, but on some of the sizes you're just not going to be able to fit it in there. So I'm going to leave this hanging off to the side. Let's see, maybe I can get it like that. And then I'm going to pin all around the outside. And I'm just going to sew as far as I can around here. I'm going to start making sure that I don't have this caught in it. And I'm going to sew all around here, and I'm going to pull this and pull this and pull this until I'm as far as I can go here. Because it's going to be a pretty big hole that you're going to have to hand stitch shut. So try to make it as small as possible. Now you can, a lot of people do the hidden seams by only sewing the booty with the grippy dot and then doing the hidden seam with the fleece layer, and you can definitely do that. It is actually a little bit easier because the fleece stretches and it's easier to stuff this in there with the fleece, but I feel like the fleece is harder to sew shut, so it's kind of a toss-up. Just do whatever you would rather do. I really want this fabric in my booty, so I'm doing it this way. Alright, I have this pinned around, and I'm still going to need to wiggle things a little bit as I'm sewing because everything wants to pull apart. I have done this from the top before. I've done this from the bottom before. And it kind of depends on how I feel that day, which one I decide to do. But I like to sew it from the bottom because then I can just put my needle in the center position and follow right along my original stitching line. Just to make sure that I don't mess anything up and go in too far. It's very bulky and wants to wiggle around. So I like following that original line. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to keep these pins in while I pin the bottom. It's easier for me to line up the insole on the other side and then pin from this side. So this is going to work either way that you want to do it. I want to keep that out of our way. Alright, let's see how crazy it looks here. You're going to have to pay a lot of attention while you sew. Now I'm going to sew this around from here to here. Okay, I have that sewn around here. My machine really choked right here at the beginning and I had to start a little bit farther out. I didn't like all this stuff behind it. So I started here and went around, and then I flipped it over and I went as far as I could here because I want this hole to be as small as possible. Now we're going to clip the curves so that it ends up nice and smooth when we flip it. Okay, and I see that I got a little pucker there. I did not notice that before, so I'm going to rip this little bit out just right here and fix that. Okay, I got that fixed, and now I'm ready to flip it. So I'm just going to tug on these a little bit to get it started. Alright, I got that flipped, and now you can see the insole here, and here is my opening, and I'm just going to hand stitch that closed. Okay, once you've sewn that hole shut, you can flip your booty the right way. And now I've got my elastic cut. I'm using 8.5 inches of elastic for an 18 to 24 month size booty. Okay, and we're going to feed the elastic through the casing. And then in one slit and out the other. And then I just scrunch this down a bunch. And tie it with 3/4 of an inch sticking out here. There are measurements for the baby sizes and big kid sizes if you don't have a kid to measure in the Facebook group, but I do recommend fitting them to your kid. I know that this is going to work for Maggie because we've made a lot of booties. Alright, so then you suck this into the casing. And get your knot in there. Alright, and then all that's left is setting your snaps.